The Scrum Framework Basics. Part one, the accountabilities. The accountabilities of Scrum are represented by three main areas, and you've heard of these, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. I would like to first take a minute and talk about why this word accountabilities. In years past, we might have called those three areas roles, and that seemed to make sense. My experience has indicated that over the years, organizations have misinterpreted the idea of the role to indicate job title. So if you're going to be a Scrum Master, that's going to be your job title. And where does that fit in the hierarchical structure of the organization? And could you get promoted to a senior Scrum Master? And you all know that there are plenty of job postings out there for product owner and Scrum Master, not so much for just generic developer. That tends to be more of a specialty item. But the founders of Scrum, I believe, never intended for Scrum Master, product owner to necessarily be a job title. Well, recently, in the most previous version of the Scrum Guide, we now have the word accountability to describe these different areas. We could call them different areas of responsibility. The point being is that there are certain things that must be addressed, and whoever does it is almost technically irrelevant. Product owner, the product owner. There's a list of things, and we'll have a separate session to go over that list of things that the product owner is going to be paying attention to. But from a very high level, what is the product owner primarily focusing on? They're primarily focusing on product success. If I could just describe that focus in two words, product success. And I say that because the product owner is the person who helps define what product success looks like. Our developers, in just a couple of words, how would I describe what they are primarily focusing on? Delivering features. They focus on delivering what the product owner is asked for. These are the builders, the doers, right? The ones who actually produce. I would love to see the word developer change to something like delivery agent, because the word developer in our very technical world often gets attached to software engineer. But you all know that a developer in Scrum is anyone on the team that's contributing to the final delivery. It could be someone from marketing. It could be a mechanical engineer. It could be a translator or an editor. And certainly it could be a software programmer. Scrum Master, in just a couple of words, what do they focus on? Well, there's lots of things we could say about the Scrum Master. I boiled it down to two words, serving others. The Scrum Master is primarily focused on making sure everyone else has what they need to be successful. And they do that in a lot of different ways. Now, come back to the product owner for a minute. I can even get it tighter than product success. How about one word? Product owners focus on what? Product owners are what people, W-H-A-T. They define what is needed. They communicate what they want. Developers, in a single word, they are how people, the solutioners, the ones that figure out how to deliver what the product owner wants. So what shall we say about the Scrum Master? Again, lots of different single words we could choose. I like the word flow, Flow. Scrum Masters are flow people. They help ensure that communication is flowing, information is flowing, product increments are flowing. If your team is not fairly consistently delivering sprint after sprint, that could represent a disruption to product flow, for example. If information is not being shared in the retrospective in a meaningful and helpful way, that could be an indicator that there's a gap, there's something blocking the flow of communication. Metrics, schedules, right? Projecting out gaps in that information that we believe probably should be there. If it's not there, could be a representation of disruption to the flow of information. So Scrum Master often is viewed as an impediment remover. Right? And I can agree with that when I think about the word flow. If I picture a stream moving along, flowing nicely, and someone drops a big boulder in the middle of that stream, well, the team might be blocked now. How can the Scrum Master help? Well, they could bring in some heavy moving equipment and just move that boulder out of the way and restore flow. They could take out a hammer and chisel and start breaking that boulder into smaller pieces so the flow can continue, maybe a little bit differently than originally planned, but it still can move forward. And sometimes the Scrum Master recognizes that that boulder is not going anywhere. So they work with the team to figure out how can we route around this boulder. Now, again, we have more to talk about these three areas of accountability, but I hope that you can see my perspective here simplifies, brings some clarity to basic introductions to what we might be expecting. Thanks for your time.